Divine Purpose book says that the charge is that they unlawfully and feloniously did conspire, combine, confederate, and agree together, and with diverse other persons to the said grand jurors unknown, to commit a certain offense against the United States of America, to wit, the offense of unlawfully, feloniously, and willfully causing insubordination, disloyalty, and refusal of duty in the military and naval forces of the United States of America when the United States was at war, by personal solicitations, letters, public speeches, distributing and publicly circulating throughout the United States of America a certain book called The Finished Mystery, and distributing and publicly circulating the Bible Students Monthly, Watchtower, Kingdom News, and other pamphlets. So they were telling people who are already in the military to be disloyal and dereliction of duty. Sedition. You've already signed on to do a task. Now you're telling them to change. You changed your mind?
Go back to the neutrality discussion. We cover this pretty well in that.
Yeah, very, very much so.
But you notice in the Divine Purpose, they did not list the other books that were banned either.
No.
So they just listed their books that were banned.
And we can only get that from these newspaper articles, which mention some of them by name.
On May 8th, 1918, Joseph Rutherford and 7 of his associates were arrested. On June 20th, they were convicted on 4 counts of sedition. July 4th, 1918, Rutherford and his associates were transported to the federal penitentiary in Atlanta, Georgia. The sentence? 20 years in prison. George Fisher, Hugh McMillan, Robert Martin, Frederick Robeson, Joseph Rutherford, William Van Amberg, Clayton Woodworth. Sentenced to 10 years in prison, Giovanni De Cecca.
It was quite a shock to them to be put in prison. Did they do something that they shouldn't have done? Was the Lord displeased with them, or was the Lord permitting it? They just didn't know.
The devil stirs up people to oppose us either directly or indirectly. Now, the charge of sedition has been one often used against Jehovah's people. This is just another ploy. Those brothers certainly were not going around trying to undermine the U.S. government.
On August 26, 1918, Brooklyn headquarters was shut down. Operations were moved back to Pittsburgh. In the minds of the clergy, the voice of the Bible students had been silenced. On November 11, 1918, the World War ended. Prisoners of war were being released. Rutherford and his associates were not. It appeared that their opponents had succeeded. The Bible students circulated a petition for the release of the 8 men.
We just need your signature right there.
And obtained 700,000 signatures. On March 12, 1919, Woodrow Wilson, President of the United States, conceded that the prison terms were excessive. On March 26th, all 8 men were released. The charges were later dropped.
But the Lord was preparing them for the future. It was going to be a battle with the political, religious, and commercial world, and Brother Rutherford was geared and trained for that after he got out.
Here's the order of events, as best that we can put it together. 1. The preparation and writing of the finished mystery began in December of 1916.
Which is after Russell's death.
Which was October. Number 2, the U.S. declares war on Germany on April 6, 1917. 3, the finished mystery was released on July 17th, and they literally just finished writing it days and weeks before. After April 6th, but definitely in July. 4, the Watchtower Society was under investigation for several months before the grand jury met from April 3rd to May 6th. The indictment was issued on May 6th, and arrests happened on the same day. And we talked about some of this in the neutrality discussion as well, because of certain things that they were saying. And you know, they were saying don't buy Liberty bonds, they're worthless. And then when they were getting in trouble with the government, it was like, oh, no, buy Liberty bonds, it's okay. And oh yeah, we should put the flags out, show our patriotism. If you're being chosen because of how you reacted with finished mystery,
you don't need a flag of the United States of America or savings bonds.
Bonds. If you're neutral, that's hardly neutral at all. See our neutrality discussion on that. 5. Watchtower was aware of the government proceedings before May 6. 6. A search warrant was issued prior to search the Society's headquarters. So the removal of books, documents, correspondence, and the radio in both Pittsburgh and New York was taken as well.
The removal by who?
The government, the police.
I just wanted to confirm that for.
No, very good. Yeah, very good. And the claim is that it was just a receiver. They couldn't transmit with the radio device. So.
But the reason I had to confirm that was so that the people are confused.
You know, that's a very good point. Yeah.
On the society removing what they don't want to be caught by the government, because
very good point. Yeah,
that's happened before.
Yeah. 7. The key element of the evidence was correspondence between watchtowers and individuals who are already serving in the Army and Navy.
And that is probably the main key point.
That is the key point. It's not
they
the
were
finished mystery.
Already in the military, doing their duty they signed up for, blessed by the society, yet now they're told otherwise, and confusion was setting in. And again, you know, you don't tell people in the middle of war, hey, stop fighting, come over here, especially an overnight switch.
Yeah.
So again, you know, I'm sorry, it was brought upon themselves.
Yeah. So the evidence that got them in trouble wasn't the finished mystery like Watchtowers portrayed it. It's private correspondence that they're writing to these folks in prison. That's what got them in trouble. Well, what's in that correspondence? Stay tuned. We'll get there. The supplementary evidence was the finished mystery and the Watchtower's public statements. You know, the Bible Students Monthly and the Kingdom News.
And we'll define supplementary evidence. Okay? If you're on trial for murder, the main evidence is a video camera with you shooting the murder victim. Supplementary evidence is your car was out front, there was a glove, you know, something you wore in the car or in the trunk. That's supplementary to collaborate the story. So the key evidence was the correspondence with the soldiers. The supplementary was the finished mystery.
Yeah, that just added to the narrative of the evidence that they already had. So this correspondence that you're talking about was encouraging the dereliction of duty and obstruction of registration for active service. That's sedition, mutiny, and illegal in almost every country, right? So Watchtower claims they were being railroaded on trumped-up charges. Doesn't sound like trumped-up charges to me. And the evidence is in the trial transcript. The documentation follows. Remember, Rutherford was telling the folks not to purchase Liberty bonds. And then later, Rutherford's reaction to the complaints of the government was to purchase the Liberty bonds. So what happened? You had Bible students leaving because they realized Rutherford's trying to compromise. Rutherford's 1918 lecture. This is the article where Rutherford says to buy the Liberty bonds. And here's evidence from the court transcript. Watchtower caved and told their followers to purchase Liberty bonds. And some of those in Bethel did it. Here's Robert J. Martin, who we talked about in our Beth Serene discussion. He said he purchased Liberty bonds. He was the floor manager at Watchtower. So he had a very high position. The Standfast group also broke away because Rutherford caved into the government on the Liberty Bond issue. At the time, there was no prohibition for Bible students to serve in the military. I mean, you had General Hall here. You had Sergeant York. No. You had Francis Sargent, who was in the Navy, and others pictured. And the others pictured here, that's from the actual FBI file that was in the Atlanta Penitentiary Correspondence. So they were Watchtower followers who chose to defend the country. And
we're allowed to.
And what is Watchtower telling them to do? When did they change the narrative? So Giovanni de Cecca was encouraged by Rutherford to send a letter to his family in the military to avoid it after they had already been serving. He also says something interesting here because he said they're all afraid to speak anything that would have its tendency against the government. So they were fearful and they still did it? Another letter states, I could not serve any others and break my covenant with God of my salvation. If he should say, I will give you a hospital work, I would answer, no. I would refuse to do anything whatsoever. I would not do any military service under no condition. I would refuse to do it. These are letters being written to those already serving in the military, and they're telling them to refuse everything, even the non-combatant service.
Which later they said was okay. Anyway. I mean, it does. We're laughing. We're not mocking the religion by any means. We're saying this respectfully, but it is a flip-flop. These are the facts. We're showing facts, not just talking without documentation. This is what happened back then.
So there were letters that were coming into Watchtower also. And they were asking, what should we do? And so they were sent a form letter that Watchtower prepared stating, I must therefore respectfully decline to obey any order to report for military duty. This is why Watchtower was getting in trouble. That's why they went to prison.
Not because of the trumpet blasts or anything like that.
Not trumpet blasts, trumped up charges is what they claimed. And these do not look like trumped up charges. These are actual letters published in the court transcript as evidence. They were doing things that were considered illegal, would still be considered illegal today. So when the accusations came up, Watchtower requested to compromise with the government. And the quotation here is, to see whether a general agreement on all the works of the association could not be reached with a view of eliminating the publication of any matters the government considered seditious. We assured the government there was no intent on any part of any member of this association to impede the draft law, and that we would do certain things without prejudice. And that's exactly what they did.
And the government saw through that.
Yeah.
It's like, wait, you're coming to us wait, here we got the letters.
Yeah, you're telling me one thing and here's the documentation saying something else.
So they did it like they played dumb or hypocritical, whatever you want to call it. I don't know what the word I'm looking for is, but you do it and then you say, well, we could change this and go back. Yeah. And then make it seem like you took a firm stand. This isn't what happened. They agreed. They went to prison under the telling people for standing firm and taking a stand, but reality is they were trying to compromise to avoid it. So
and another one of the compromises they tried is, well, we can't distribute the finished mystery because of these pages.
Cut them
so
out.
They tore them out. The government didn't go for that either, but they did make an attempt. And then they summarized the book. There's other ways they attempted to do it. Well, can't publish it as a book. Let's publish it as a special Watchtower edition. You're doing the same thing. You kept getting caught.
And they're insulting the people, the government.
Yeah.
And I mean, you're insulting their intelligence. It's like a school teacher having a 6-year-old don't chew gum. So then they put it in their mouth, but they don't chew. And sit there. Well, okay, spit the gum out. The teacher knew what they were doing. They weren't fooling anyone.
No, and we have the documentation in the court transcript to show. So is very interesting. Again, basically, Watchtower also told its followers who were in the military to refuse any duty other than cooking and dishes until President Wilson would define what non-combatant service was. That's interesting.
Well, if they were smart enough to at least choose where the food is to go to so that they can at least eat.
So, how did President Wilson define it? So if we go to the St. Paul Enterprise, that Watchtower secret newspaper, that discussion that we had before, in the February 12th, 1918 Enterprise, we get a little bit of this history I wasn't aware of until quite recently. And I got this from a Jehovah's Witness friend of mine, a fellow historian. And I was surprised. It's a very interesting story. In this Enterprise, a personal meeting was set up with President Wilson himself, and the president asked if the Watchtower members would be willing to serve in the Red Cross or anything that was not decidedly of a war or war preparatory nature. And they're seeing President Wilson in person. They went to the White House to see him. The answer was that it was up to the individual's conscience.
We'll tell them what their conscience should be, but it's up to their conscience to listen to us.
Yeah.
Now, in defense, I mean, what more could you ask for? What other government in this world? Could you imagine Hitler saying, okay, you guys don't have to go to war. Would you mind serving in the Red Cross and help the soldiers that get shot or help with something else? Okay, that was the compromise was on the government's behalf. And how could you fault at that time, the government of the United States at that time? How could you fault them for that?
Yeah, it's objections to the Red Cross as well. Objections to the Red Cross appeared in Watchtower literature as early as 1916 as well. So they were also objecting to that because the Red Cross was helping the military. And you're basically patching them up to send them back out to fight some more. So that's why they objected to it. And that's what Rood got in trouble for. It was because he was serving in the Red Cross as he was a Jehovah's Witness. See our discussion on that. What we're seeing in this documentation isn't matching what Watchtower is claiming. The more we investigate it, the more it doesn't match. So they go to see President Wilson, and it's a little too late. So by the time the articles are published in May of 1916, favoring the Red Cross, now it's a reversal. And favoring Liberty Bonds, Rutherford and his friends were already arrested. So their attempt at compromise, too little, too late. Rutherford attempted to compromise with the government on the Liberty Bonds, the Red Cross.
And that's the point.
Yeah,
he attempted to compromise. It wasn't, again, what it was embellished to be.
Yeah, and you see even that the statements that he makes in the trial transcript show that he's trying to compromise even while being interrogated. And some of his statements are not the narrative that he was trying to spin and Watchtower spins about it. I mean, the documentation is out there for everyone to see. You can look on the internet for the Rutherford versus United States trial transcript and download it. And it's very interesting read. Watchtower asks us to fact check the history.
Could we
Go
put
check it out.
that as
Fact check Watchtower history too, right?
Yeah, could we put that as a link on our site to allow them to click onto and go to it?
Yeah, that's a very good idea. We'll add that into the description. Watchtower claims that they were completely exonerated at the end of the war after they were released from prison. Let's fact check the history. Let's look it up.